1. The abandoned house. It was a dark and stormy night when Alex, a pizza delivery driver, received an order for a remote address that had an eerie reputation. Despite the unease settling in his gut, he needed the money and decided to make the delivery. He followed the GPS through winding back roads, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to swallow the car's headlights. As he approached the address, the sense of foreboding intensified. The house loomed ahead, a dilapidated mansion with broken windows and sagging roof lines. The overgrown lawn added to the aura of abandonment. With trepidation, Alex stepped out of the car and walked up to the creaky porch. The wind howled through the broken windows, producing an eerie symphony of creaks and moans. Summoning his courage, Alex knocked on the door, which swung open with a slow, unsettling creak. Against his better judgment, he stepped inside and called out, announcing the delivery. No response. The air inside was musty, and the faint glow of his phone's flashlight revealed a layer of dust covering the furniture. As he ventured deeper, whispers seemed to echo around him, sending shivers down his spine. Alex's heart raced as he stumbled upon an old photo album on a dusty coffee table. The photos depicted a happy family, children playing in the yard, parents laughing on the porch. Puzzled, he wondered why a family would leave behind such precious memories. Suddenly, a cold hand touched his shoulder, and he spun around, heart pounding. Before him stood a ghostly figure, its face a blur of sorrow and anger. Panic surged through Alex, and he dropped the pizza box, its contents scattering on the floor. Adrenaline surged as Alex turned and bolted for the door. The ghostly figure's mournful wails followed him as he sprinted down the porch and into the rain-soaked night. He didn't look back until he reached his car, heart pounding. The abandoned house loomed in the distance, a chilling reminder of the encounter he'd just survived. He sped away, the echoes of his own fearful breaths mingling with the memory of the ghostly whispers. 2. The mysterious caller. On a quiet and moonless night, Mark, a seasoned pizza delivery driver, received a call from a blocked number. A raspy voice ordered a pizza to be delivered to an address that Mark didn't recognize, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Despite his better judgment, he needed the money and decided to take the order. As Mark arrived at the warehouse, a sense of unease settled in the pit of his stomach. The surroundings were unusually quiet, the air thick with a tension he couldn't quite place. He parked his car and stepped out, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the stillness. The warehouse loomed before him, its windows shattered and its exterior marked by time and neglect. Taking a deep breath, Mark approached the entrance and pushed open the creaking door. He stepped inside cautiously, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. He called out for the customer, but his voice seemed to get swallowed by the vast emptiness of the space. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind him, causing him to jump in alarm. Mark's heart raced as he turned toward the door, realizing he was trapped. Panic surged within him, and he fumbled for his phone, using its flashlight to scan the area. Strange symbols adorned the walls, and in the center of the room, a pentagram had been drawn on the floor in what looked like dried blood. Before his eyes, the air grew cold, and he felt an otherworldly presence fill the room. He swung his flashlight around, revealing hooded figures standing in a circle around the pentagram. Their voices rose in a haunting chant, the language unfamiliar and chilling. Mark's mind raced, and his breaths came in short, panicked bursts. Without a second thought, he dropped the pizza box and turned to flee, his heart pounding in his chest. He reached the door and pulled with all his might, relief flooding him as it finally swung open. He burst out of the warehouse, stumbling into the night air, leaving behind the chilling scene of the hooded figures and their malevolent ritual. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications. 3. The Vanishing House. It was a misty evening when Emily, a pizza delivery driver, received an order for an address she didn't recognize. The address led her to a quiet suburban neighborhood that felt oddly devoid of life. As she approached the destination, confusion gnawed at her. The GPS showed that she had reached her destination, but there was nothing but an empty lot before her. Emily double-checked the address, convinced she had made a mistake, but the numbers matched, and she couldn't ignore the strange feeling that she was being watched. Just as she was about to turn away, she heard a faint voice calling for help. It was almost a whisper, carried by the wind. Following the voice, Emily's eyes widened as a small, dilapidated house seemed to materialize out of thin air. The house looked as if it had been abandoned for decades, its windows shattered, and its paint faded and peeling. Hesitant, but intrigued, Emily knocked on the door, and it swung open with a mournful creak. Before her stood a woman, disheveled and weary-looking. She begged Emily to help her, claiming that she had been trapped within the house for years, unable to escape its confines. Emily's heart raced, torn between sympathy and disbelief. As Emily hesitated, the woman's appearance seemed to shift and waver, revealing her as a ghostly figure. The temperature in the room plummeted, and the air grew heavy with sorrow. Emily's instincts screamed at her to leave, but a morbid curiosity kept her rooted in place. Suddenly, the walls of the house began to tremble, and Emily felt a crushing pressure closing in on her. The ghostly figure's wails turned into haunting cries, and Emily realized that the house itself was a prison, a place of eternal torment for the trapped spirit. With a surge of fear, Emily turned and ran, crashing through a window as a chilling wind seemed to chase her, carrying with it the anguished cries of the trapped soul. Emily stumbled out of the house, bloodied and shaken as the dilapidated structure seemed to fade away once again, leaving behind only a vacant lot. She rushed to her car, her breaths ragged, and sped away from the vanishing house, forever haunted by the memory of the ghostly plea and the inexplicable phenomena she had witnessed. 4. The never-ending road. Jake, a weary pizza delivery driver, accepted an order that led him to an unfamiliar part of town. As he drove down a seemingly ordinary road, something felt off. The surroundings grew unfamiliar, and the road stretched ahead, seemingly endless, with no signs of civilization in sight. Confusion turned to unease as Jake realized he had been driving for far longer than he should have needed to. The road, eerily devoid of any landmarks, seemed to wind on forever, and the sense of being watched grew stronger with each passing mile. He checked his GPS, desperately searching for a way back, but the device seemed to malfunction, showing his location as a mere dot on an unending stretch of road. Finally, after what felt like hours, Jake spotted a cabin nestled amongst the trees. Relieved, he pulled up to the cabin and got out of the car. He knocked on the door, and it creaked open, revealing a pale, hollow-eyed man who paid for the pizza in silence. Jake's attempts at conversation were met with only a vacant stare. As Jake turned to leave, the man's bony hand shot out, gripping Jake's arm with surprising strength. The man's lips parted, and he whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." A chill raced down Jake's spine, and he wrenched his arm free, stumbling backward. Heart pounding, Jake rushed back to his car and sped away, but something was amiss. The road that had stretched endlessly before now seemed to loop back on itself. No matter which direction he turned, he found himself back at the cabin, as if caught in a nightmarish cycle. Days blurred into nights as Jake's desperation grew. He tried everything to escape the loop, driving in reverse, following his own tire tracks, but nothing worked. The man's whispered words echoed in his mind, mingling with the disorienting repetition of the cabin and the surrounding woods. Jake's mind began to fray at the edges as exhaustion and fear took their toll. He grew emaciated and disheveled, haunted by the relentless repetition. He'd catch glimpses of the hollow-eyed man at the cabin, watching him from a distance. Jake was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, where time lost all meaning and escape seemed impossible. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications.